First Amendment, one of 10, but it's special. It has 5 parts to just the one amendment. Those five parts being the freedom of speech, petition, press, assembly, and religion. But we're not here to talk about all 5. We're here today to talk about one specific, the freedom of speech. In 1948, the first case of obscenity in comic books was brought into the public view. It was Winters versus New York. This was the first time obscenity had ever been thought of in comic books to be taken seriously. There was movies, books, but comic books. No one ever thought of that. They are mostly seen for kids, but that's not the same in all cultures. In Europe, especially in countries like Japan, comic books are not typically meant for kids. They're meant for the adult population. So, in 2000, a man named Jesus A. Castillo Jr. was working as a clerk in a bookstore. A man came in and bought a comic book. That comic book was specifically in the adult section, where no kids were allowed to go. So, he paid and he left. But little did Jesus know what was going to happen. He was arrested by Texas police. The Texas court then happened, and he was charged guilty under the plain argument that the prosecutor said that it's comic books. Why is there obscene material in it? They're just meant for kids. But that is not true. Maybe in America they are seen for kids, but in other cultures they're meant for the adult population. But first of all, he was arrested when he was just doing his job. And the man went specifically to the adult section of the store and bought a comic book from a Japan series. So, yes, he was charged. He was supposed to have 180 days in prison, 1 year probation, and pay a $4,000 fine. But the defense was able to get the 100 days off from jail, so he never actually spent jail time. And since he was convicted guilty, they tried to appeal to the Supreme Court because this was not his fault. He was just doing his job. But it was denied in 2003. And this is similar to a case from the 1990s for Michael Diana. He was a cartoonist from Florida, and he was banned from creating his own drawings in the privacy of his own home, even if it was for his own view. He was convicted, and he was sentenced to 1,200 hours of community service, a $3,000 fine, psychological counseling, and he had to take a journalism ethics class. And today, the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund says Diana is the first and only American convicted of obscenity for art. And this was what really scared comic book creators for their creative experimentation. Were they free to draw what they wanted in their comic books? Was it against that First Amendment right? Well, there was an important quote said by Neil Gaiman, a comic creator. He said, "I can't imagine a world in which the same argument from the Castillo case would have worked for books or for films." That rings true. What's the difference from obscene material in comic books to movies or books? There is no difference. They had their right to draw what they felt. And the Texas court said the law couldn't stop the adult population to only viewing what is fit for kids. They could look at obscene material that is made for adult population. So, as an adult, he bought an adult comic book in the adult section. And yet, his prosecutor made the case that comic books are for kids, when clearly, if there is an adult section, why are no kids allowed in there if it's a comic book? Because it has this material that is meant for the adult population. And the law can't state that all adults must be forced under kid-friendly material. So, Jesus was convicted. I don't think it was personally right. He was doing his job. If anything, the owner should have had the fault. He was selling the comic book. That was his job. So, today we talked about the First Amendment and if obscenity goes against it. Well, It could in some cases, maybe if it were kids in kids view. But he bought a comic book in the adult section.